Hello, Rob here again. This is going to be an update session. I've been busy at work with lots of different stuff. You may remember last time, I almost barely do, that I had designed a 2 breadboard colorizer that would do any format. Sure. It turned out it was able to reach the heights of 60p, which I didn't even think existed. But I'm going to recommend we don't go there, okay? If all you have to feed you is a computer that puts out 60p, you can. Turns out that wonderful little adapter that I promoted doesn't always. That is to say, I had 3 or 4 of them. One of them couldn't reach 60p. It was so cute to watch it. It was sort of like a dinosaur with scales on the back. No. Hooks on the back. No. Humps on the back. No. Fingers on the back. No. Whatever you call those things sticking out of the back of a dinosaur. Fins. It had like those. It was just not working. Let me say that again. So here it is. Here's the 2 breadboard colorizer. Okay, can we autofocus on that? Focus, yes. So what did Rob do? He added a 3rd breadboard. Why did he do that? Well, let's look at the knobs. Let's look at those knobs. Zit. I could turn it over. Zit. Yes, that's kind of how I operate it. Those are the knobs. And what was limited about those knobs? Well, I'll show you. Here we are at the whiteboard. Remember the whiteboard? Let's look up the 3 knobs. They were, we'll call it Y, or loom. Some people might call it brightness. Too many letters. I don't like the word brightness. Sorry. I don't use it. If anything, I'll say, in fact, in this perturbation, I'm going to say Y. Why? I'll show you. The next knob was B minus Y. B minus Y. And the last knob was R minus Y. R minus Y. Okay? Ooh, that looks beautiful. You didn't want those in a row. Okay, with those 3 knobs, yes, you could get all the colors. But good luck trying to find a gray. I like gray. I like gray a lot. Not just because I'm gray. You could make the chroma go away. You could null these suckers out. It's like gray. It's kind of a greenish gray, a reddish gray. And you could find all the colors. Kind of hard to get there. B minus Y is not blue. But it says B minus Y. I colored it in blue. I made blue. I used the blue. I used the blue. I used the red for R minus Y. They're not. They're kind of it, but they're not it. So it's hard to get all the colors. So how do we get to the much better knobs? Let's draw them again. The easier knobs to use are good old dear loom. I call it loom, sat, and hue. Hue. Those are way easier to use. Ooh, off the edge of the screen. Come back, you. You come back here. So I want gray. I turn saturation all the way down. I want more color. I turn it up. Which color? Go around the wheel. That's what you want. That's easier to find a color. To set a color, it's just more fun. How do we make those? How do we make those? We know that the colorizer itself is using those signals. So we need to create those signals. Okay? And let's go back to that breadboard. Let's go back to that breadboard. The 2 boards, I added a 3rd board. And what the hell is that? Yes, people, it's an Arduino. I tried to design a bunch of circuits without Arduinos. But you know what? I use them. And I decided this is going to be this season about what I do, how I design what I do. Don't have to do it, but Arduino's really easy to program with a few little caveats. Once you get the thing going, it's pretty easy. Heck, I'll send you the code that does this. And it's really, there's one function in the Arduino well, two really. It's the sine and the cosine. Those are what makes sine waves, what makes circles. Anybody done any trig? I hated geometry. I didn't much like algebra. For some reason, I like trig, but it let you do stuff like this, angles and circles and the sine, just those two functions, which very hard to implement in just analog electronics, very easy to do with an Arduino. So, sorry, I use an Arduino. In later courses, we'll get into more details, but now I have to do some disclaimers, some confessions, some absolute, oh my God, oh my God. I said that there was a particular kind of converter. When I get pompous, you know I'm full of shit. It just happens. Like, oh, there's something wrong with these converters. There was. They were acting weird when. Just when. They were designed to work in the home, and they worked perfectly. They were fine. They were great. And I'd get a hold of them, and they'd work weird. How did I even discover that? Well, I would take a pair of them back to back. I would come in HDMI, go to analog, take the analog back to HDMI, and lo and behold, it was fabulous. It was like the windows, the analog windows to the digital world. Cool! So that was all cool and groovy, and they worked great. And then, I don't remember if I told you, but when I want to add multiple videos together, it's easy to make a colorizer just handle one video. What if I want to have multiple inputs? Now, a big old, nice, lovely, relatively inexpensive HD possible switcher exists now that fades. There's all the cool things that we used to pay tens of thousands of dollars to do. And they take HDMI inputs and they work great. And heck, they'll convert stuff. They'll just make everything what you want. Fade is all great. What don't they give you? They don't give you multiple occurrences. You would want to get each of those signals to analog so we can have fun with it in the analog domain. Cool and groovy. And I would use a very powerful, I draw them like this because I stack them up in a row. The black magic. I'm going to put that off the end of the screen on purpose. The black magic what, Rob? Black magic makes a trillion things. What in particular? The black magic up, down, cross converter. Very, very cool, powerful. I don't know, $150. And basically they'll genlock, they'll take many things in, and they'll genlock them and make whatever you want coming out. Okay. And there are caveats. Aren't there always caveats? But they do one really evil thing. And it's typical of black magic to give you power, but amazing ability, but always a but. And all well and good. Cool, they're groovy. I have 3 of them. I go up to analog. I can mix them and match them, do all kind of groovy analog thing. What's the problem? Well, when they would come out HDMI and drive that old lovely Radio Shack converter that had its problems, it needed to be terminated. I don't need to terminate. The output goes away. This new one, cool, cheap, and available, and plentiful, and you don't need to terminate them to get your video out. Groovy, so you can play some tricks with the 2 volts, and all video terminates to 1 volt. If you let it unterminate, you got your 2 volts, which later on at the end, you can just shush on out. So you don't need any gain. You can play games like that. I don't, but you could. On the Radio Shack, forget it. It's like you don't terminate it. If you forget to terminate it, what happened? It's all gone. Got to terminate it. And the Radio Shacks have this nasty little habit of stopping working. They just suddenly, where's the output? How do you fix it? You cold boot it. You power it down, power it up, and it works. It's like, is that the life you want to live? no and yes and no and yes. So these new little cheap ones, they didn't even have a name. They had squirrely names, but Amazon.com, $20. Amazing. I bought a couple of them. Something funny happens with them. When you take a Blackmagic converter, I'll draw it sideways, Blackmagic converter, and you go into those, I'll call it a D to A, the Radio Shack version of this, fine, what you expect, cool and groovy. Sometimes you have to reboot it, so you have to terminate it, but great, I got a bunch of them, cool. And I thought, well, damn, these new cheap little ones, they seem to work fine, but something about them doesn't like what the Blackmagic is doing. Some interface code buried bullshit. And what comes out is weird, unuseful, useless. It's something like an RGB, but even that's kind of squirrely. Damn. So I get on my horse. They're bad, they're horrible. I tell Amazon, they suck, they don't do what they're supposed to do. Where was the problem? Blackmagic. Screwed me again. Screw me the best. It'll screw me in the future. Just amazing. I could tell stories about other crazy ass Blackmagic stuff. When it works, it's outstanding. So I'm stupid. That was wrong. That was dumb. Sorry. So probably enough blah blah for today.